Kapow! And now we're live, Steve.
Now we're live. Yay. You think I figure out how to do this kind of thing? Well, it's a little bit different when it's in somebody else's hands. Um, Welcome to the show. This is, of course, Amigos Monday, Amigos and Co. We are down one person today because he did a naughty thing. He went and hung out with some very bad people and they broke him. So we've got to fix him, and he's in the shop. But we've got, of course, if we figure out which way. I can never get this right. That way is my good friend Adam. You know him as Breeze Tones. You might even know him as Steve's Brones. Now that gets him a little cranky, so keep it up. Keep calling him. Keep using that phrase. Other than that, yeah, I have nothing else to say. I'm just yapping. I'll hand it over to my good friend. There, it's not Adam. That's Moby. It's Moby.
God, God,
Moby.
I've had Mr. Magoo. I've had so many different things right now with his shaved head. It's it's not just COVID. It's that I wanted to do it for a long time because obviously I am a little shy on the hair follicles there. Hey, it's a rebirth, and I'm liking it. I'm liking
I'll
the
be
shape.
honest. I would keep this down at that level just because it's so much easier and more comfortable.
Hmm.
But with this, I only have to do it like once a week. But with that, you have to do it daily, and I'm just too fucking. I don't even wick as often as I should. I'm not going to shave. I mean, I try to spend as little time in the bathroom as possible, mainly because I'm a vain motherfucker. And if I spend too much time in there, I start trimming hairs and just ignore as much of that as possible. I don't
Also,
actually get things done.
I'm going to just address the chat and say thank you to our head wrench, Mr. Stephen Sard.
Yeah.
Thank you. He's saying there, please remember that Chris, he's referring to Vandal, will be giving away a new car to each viewer. You will have to pay taxes. British Eyes Only, what's up, mate? Matthew Welch, hello. Rob the Great Wombatsky, dude. Sabro. Mr. Mowgli, what's up, my friend? Legion Vapes, hello to you. Someone should boot that dude. Frames motherfucking Janklin is here. Stephen Sard, the lovely gentleman that is Stephen Sard. Hello and thank you for your wrench hand. Brett Jordan, what's up, dude? Mr. Evan Sanders, Jeremy Clark, yo, back to you, my friend. Yeah, we got a nice little fan bam in the chat as always. We very much appreciate you coming to spend some time with us at the Amigos and Co. We very much appreciate your time.
So why don't we do that thing? That thing that is, as I've said before, it is international law. If you have a vape show, you've got to show off your shit. You've got to do the buffet. So why don't we actually do that just to fulfill our legal requirements? Mine today is pretty damn simple. It's the same stuff I've been using for the last couple of weeks, partially because not much is coming in, and partially because I really like these setups. My silent setup, the Odin 200, the Axial Pro. If you watched my show on Friday, you saw me put the popcorn in there. It's okay. It's okay. But I'm just not a fan of popcorn. So I pulled this apart last night, full rewick. And because I didn't want to start a new flavor of this line not on the air, I went to one that I know, baked apple custard, Frank Atticus. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. One of my favorites of their line so far. Definitely, this is one that I'm going to order more for myself. Oddly enough, I put it in, I started vaping, and that peppermint and white chocolate cookie that they do as well, that I had like a week or two ago, my mouth started watering. I just thought about it. I just started craving it. I never crave peppermint or mint in anything, and I just started wanting that flavor. So the two of those are something that I'm definitely going to go back to and order a ton more just for myself because I really do like those. On top of that, yeah, classic setup. We got the OG recoil, we got the Hexome, solid black. It's nothing fancy, but it kicks out a storm. Both of these, by the way, Breeze Tones coils, matching setup. And this one is Rock B from Secret Bunker. It is pretty much your 100% spot on rendition of Rockstar. I like it. I like their Monster Best. I like their Red Bull a little bit less. I like this a little bit less than that. But that's not a knock on the flavors. those are my preferences in real life, and these are pretty freaking close to real life. They taste pretty much like what's in your can there.
Mm.
The only other thing I've got is a bit of a sneak peek. This, which is the all new. Oh, let's see if we can get some focus there. Get rid of the eyes. That'll do it. It is a new pod system from Aegis. Pretty straightforward. Little button on the bottom, lights up when you vape.
Did you say Aegis?
I said Aegis. I meant Geek Vape.
Oh.
This is not released yet. This will be out in a couple of weeks, so my review won't. I'll have a good chance to test it before then. But it's your basic pod system. Works kind of like a mech in that the button's down there, and you can draw to inhale or you can button fire. It's got multiple voltages. The button is locked to the highest, and the draw is variable. So that's kind of nice. You can actually have like a harder hit if you want, but for drawing, just whatever you set it at. Same coils as in the Aegis Boost.
Mm. So I guess too small for an RBA, perhaps?
Same coils that are in this one.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely too small. When I have things like this, they really annoy the crap out of my wife because I tend to...
And there's a light at the bottom. Ah!
Unfortunately, I couldn't make it go... Like, it does have a red, but red is not an active color. It lights up to whatever color because you saw it was green.
Yeah.
So if I change it, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There you go.
Mm. Interesting.
Great flavor from this. Surprised me. Actually,
Nice.
I thought it was going to be a little lackluster, this kind of tiny little pod, but yeah, it really, really performs well. And if you're curious, Anarchist Pink Lemonade, because I must have a bottle of that on the go at all times. I must have that in something at all times because it is surprisingly one of my all-time favorite flavors. I'm normally a cake, I'm normally a pastry guy, but that's just one that I just keep coming back to. I mean, they really, really nailed it with that. Anyway, that's it. That's pretty much all I'm vaping today. So I will sign off on this little missive, and I will pass over to my good friend Adam. What are you vaping, man?
Yeah, well, I've got these set up when I was on the Vaping with the Omis. This is the Steve Legion Aegis X DHD 1 of 1 edition with the Blotto. In there, I have a little bit of Little Dipper. I think it's Little Dipper. No, it's Yummy Vapor. I switched it out. Yummy Vapor Butter Brew. I have the Slang Averted Dangercorn, Palmer's Powders, as always. That has some Syntax Prohibition. But I have a newfound love affair for MTL. I've always been down on a little MTL rebuildable. So I've got my standard Swag 2 with the Glaz Mini MTL, but I'm testing a coil in there. A little 0.63 at 19 watts. If you can see here, those are crackles. But this one as well. That has Vinyl and Vapor Psychocroller in that one. Nice. But this is latest acquisition is another Swag 2 because I like the little regulated 18650 for MTL bangers with the K-Fun 2019 Light and the bell cap in ice. I have in there PB Party, also by Eric Vinyl and Vapor. That has another coil that I'm testing, but that is a 17 watts and that is a 0.5 build. Nice little crackle going on there. This is outstanding. The hype on a K-Fun is absolutely true. They're amazing. It's a little bit different, but it's getting used to that airflow and the concentrated flavor in your mouth hole is out of control. So I've been hitting those pretty hard in the last couple of days, and that's it. That's my setups.
Very, very nice.
Yeah.
Now you raised something, and I was going to save this for a later show, but you raised something there, and I was thinking about this the other day. So you've got the K-Fun there, and you know about Squape, right? They're from Switzerland, and,
yes.
and different but similar in concept. And it started making me think about that the European scene, when it comes to manufacturing, you've got a lot of higher-end mouth-to-lungs, a lot of higher-end squonk boxes, A lot of very, very particular and very specific sort of rebuildable types setups. And when you go to the American, and I don't want to say masculine, but more aggressive setups seems to be more common. Things like the Purge and um, ooh, trying to think off the top of my head, your traditional Hammond box with like virtually no circuitry in there that just hits like a ton of bricks. Those
Hmm.
sort of things, and they're very very different in terms of the aim. Like I said, I think the American stuff seems to be a lot more aggressive, and the European is it seems arrogant to say this, but a bit more sophisticated. Yet here in Australia, we don't have a lot. We don't have a lot of hardware industry. We have of course Haku, and there are a couple of people doing the Hammond box type things. A couple of people are doing very very low run uh, printed
Hmm.
things, 3D printing, but we don't have a lot. So I'm just curious what you think. If we did grow, if our industry did grow and it grew organically, where would we fall? Do you think in that scale of things?
I can never forget that comment when we, back in the day, when we did the show with the vendors, and I would think it was Mike Smider in Canada and the gentleman from Vaporize. We were talking about, the groups, the age groups of who was buying most of the products. And in Australia, it's the 35 to 45 crowd that
Mm-hmm.
are the majority of vapors and all that sort of situation. So it was really interesting there because I think also vapors that I've met carry a bunch of devices. Like seeing someone with three of these, a mech, a pod, or a little MTL and a tank or an RDA of some description. Kind of, from what I've seen, Australian vapors like a bit of everything, but the pods and the MTL probably, or even sub tanks, I guess, convenience, that whole situation. Um, I don't know. I think it's just still going to maintain a cross section of all the devices. Hence why, dual regulateds, no matter what's being put on top,
Yeah.
is probably king. Maybe the Caliburn slash Yearn pods. That whole situation is easy convenience. So many people working with their devices and they want to have something that they can drop 12 times and it's not going to break on them and all that sort of thing. So I really don't know, but I mean, even Dave, Dave was showing things off in your show on Sunday, the Aussie Vape show, that it was like, wow, man, that's an incredible amount of money. Beautiful devices, but, it's a very small part of the market, but
Yeah.
that vape meet, I know it's not really answering your question. The vape meet that I had here in Adelaide late last year, and the amount of people that had these tiny little beautiful high-end devices, hemo devices almost, I was like, wow, and then there's the people that have got two Kennedys and I'm sitting over here with my little Caliburn and a topside dual.
No vape shame, man. You just
No.
vape whatever works.
Totally. But that's a hard question to answer because
Yeah.
the cross section of products is so big.
Yeah. And that's the thing. What I'm actually curious about is not so much like what people will vape, because I know that China will always master the market in terms of pod systems and smaller, mass-produced things, and they're very very popular across the world, like Europe and the States.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more about like the actual homegrown, slightly more limited production of products.
Yeah. Right.
Like I said, like America, like there's tons of Aegis and there's tons of Smock and there's tons of people using that stuff.
Yeah.
But what they make is goons, and they make purges, and they make
Kennedy. Yeah.
Kennedys, and they make these very aggressive, very powerful, very very masculine sort of devices. Whereas Europe tends to make, like I said, the Squape, which is just a beautiful, beautiful. Like I've never tried one.
Yeah.
Which is just they're just beautiful engineering, just beautiful design.
Yeah.
The K Fun, which is again, it's a marvel of engineering. These pieces of wood that people have, I only produce 3 per month, and I carve them by hand, and they're hand polished,
Yeah.
and they're all sort of swoopy looking little squonk mods. They tend to be more on that side of things.
Yeah.
So it was just an off the cuff sort of concept. Like, what would the Australian character be? Because I think that those differences in what is made really represents the character of the country.
Yeah.
And I see Australia being different than both of those. So I wonder what we would make.
Don't know. I mean, there's so many good engineering firms in here, in Australia, and engineering is a big part. God, of even South Australia, my past jobs dealing with engineering firms, manufacture and all sort of thing. I guess the costs involved in, like an RDA is, such a bunch of moving pieces and a lot of little things that have all come together in such a tight tolerance. A tube, arguably there's less parts, but, tubes are probably the situation of easier to engineer. I have no idea. I mean, even there was that Sydney company late last year that had a dual regulated device. I probably can't even find them or remember them on Instagram, but it was like, is that the first company that I've seen in Australia that had a chipped regulated device,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of any company that's done a regulated chip that hasn't been purchasing like DNA boards or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Small run stuff.
But surely there's, hobbyist slash,
Yeah.
makers who are, there's a 3D printed squonk box mech
Yeah.
that Modi, showed me a couple of days ago. I was like, never heard of it, but it was beautiful. It's a
Well,
shame.
like I said, there are people out there doing the Hammond box style, which is a bit of a throwback in a sense, but there's always a market for that. Like just a big solid box that takes a large RDA and just kicks out power like you wouldn't believe. There's always going to be a market for that. And if you can put together one well and clean, like the wiring clean,
Yeah.
and you've definitely got a market there. And there are a handful of those
Yeah.
that I've seen actually more recently, which surprised me. But they're here.
Yeah.
Veering off this topic and getting onto something else. I know you got something on your mind. I talked about it on my last stream. You talked about it in your previous stream, and it is in our title. So why don't we get to the main topic and talk about the state of affairs in Australia, the legalities of it. And before I get into any of this, disclaimer: I'm not a doctor, not a medical professional. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a solicitor. Neither is my good friend there. We are just concerned enthusiasts sharing what we've learned. Take everything we say with a bit of a grain of salt. Do your own research, look into it. But before we get into all that, I do want to kind of cover the background. Just if you're Australian, you might not be aware of it. And if you're overseas, you're definitely not aware of what's going on here. Every country is a little bit different. So before we get into what we're talking about, you need to understand that in Australia, liquid nicotine is considered a scheduled substance. It's a poison. And there's a arm of our government here called the Therapeutic Goods Association. Is it association? The TGA. They oversee all that stuff, right? So they consider it a scheduled poison. It's interesting to note that nicotine in its pure and unrefined format is not covered by that. So cigarettes, cigars, snuff, chewing tobacco, they're not even concerned with that. That doesn't fall under their purview. Nicotine that has been processed into a product does fall under their purview, but it's not considered a scheduled substance. So patches, sprays, gums, they're considered medicine. They have a proven use, etc., and they're not covered under this specific section. For some odd reason, nicotine in a flavored suspension, which is this stuff, is considered the same as just raw nicotine, just raw liquid nicotine, and it is covered under that. In Australia, you cannot buy, purchase, sell, give away that stuff without a license. It's very, very hard to get, and it's pretty much only for manufacturers and stuff. We would never get one. So you can't have it. Just can't have it. Except it's not a loophole, it's a specific clause that says that if you're using it medicinally, you can import up to 3 months supply for personal usage. You need a prescription for that. This has been the law in this country for forever, for as long as we can remember. I can't even tell you when it started. It's just way back. Up to now, we've kind of ignored that. We go by part of it, which is you can import 3 months supply. Most of us haven't had prescriptions. We didn't think we could. We didn't think it was a possibility. We couldn't find a doctor who would talk to us rationally or reasonably about it. It just could not happen. So we were skirting the law. We always said, yeah, you can bring in this much, but technically, because you don't have a prescription, you're breaking the law.
Yeah.
Recently, our lovely Minister of Health, Mr. Greg Hunt, has, yay, Greg, has made some waves. And this is all before the coronavirus issues happened, et cetera. But he pushed in Parliament for two things. One, he wants to change the law a little bit. That's under discussion, and that's up for debate in the future. But the other thing is that he has insisted that Border Control fulfill their obligations. They actually look at packages, they check, they make sure that we're supposed to have what we're ordering, specifically when it comes to nicotine. Border Control are very, very busy people. They got a lot to do. They're very, very hectic kind of process going through packages, and they're not really that concerned about it. So, of course, Mr. Greg Hunt's on them. He's giving them pressure to be more strict, basically. Mm-hmm. So if you are in Australia and you have been ordering your e-liquid from overseas all this time, not a problem, it gets shipped in. Things may change soon. It all depends on how this all shakes out. It all depends on how well Border Control listen to what they've been told. Technically, they're supposed to check every parcel, and if it has nicotine, they're supposed to check the name on it and compare it to a database of prescriptions. Mm-hmm. And if that name does not appear, then they will get in touch with you and say, do you have a prescription? If your name is on there, they'll check it and compare it to the content. If your prescription is lower than what's in that box, they'll throw it away. If it's higher or equal, they'll send it on, no problems. This is something that is incredibly important right now. And I know I'm going on for a long time. Sorry, Adam.
No, but, totally okay.
This is really, really important. It's basically called covering your ass. And I want to make this clear that neither the two of us on this show, nor ATHRA, nor any advocacy agency in Australia think that you should need a prescription. None of us think that that's a realistic way to deal with this. We shouldn't have to have this. But the law currently states that you do need to. ATHRA are part of a movement to ensure that you can. I and Adam here, we're doing the best that we can to get this information out there to ensure that you know that you can, that you know how to do it, and that you cover your ass. Because if you get your prescription and there's any issues, whether it's to do with having stuff shipped in or being caught on the street, wherever you are, it's possible that a cop could come up to you and say, what's in that vape? And if you say nicotine, you better be prepared to show a prescription, that kind of thing. So that's pretty much the situation. Now, there used to be that getting a doctor to give you a prescription was really, really hard. There are more and more doctors coming out of the woodwork and being very, very vocal, very, very open about being able to do that. And the good news is that most of them have contacted ATHRA. ATHRA have a database. Here, let me just find my mouse. There it is. And I'll just throw this into the chat.
Yeah, please do.
Actually, hold on.
I'll
do it in a sec when I pass over to you, because I've got to go hunt for the address. But there is a page on ATHRA that will actually list all the doctors that they know of in Australia. It's got a handy dandy little map thing. Put in your postal code and you can find one. They will undoubtedly help you out. And the good thing is, even if you're regional as I am and very, very far away, you don't have to walk in. You can do it by phone. You can do it by ATHRA, or not by ATHRA, by Zoom. You can have a nice little chat with a doctor anywhere in the country, and basically take care of this. It's quick, it's easy, it's painless. It covers your ass. That's the bottom line. And that's my major concern, is that we need to ensure that in the future, your packages don't get sent back and you're left hanging, that you're not finding your stuff like confiscated, et cetera, like that. You need to make sure that you can continue to stay smoke-free. So with that said, Adam, I think you wanted to talk a little bit about your personal experience getting a prescription, and I will grab that.
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to what you were saying about ATHRA and doctors or health professionals being given, the green light. Because I remember looking into this, it was over a year ago. I'd only been vaping for a little while, and obviously, getting products was a big thing, and obviously putting those around me in a situation because I was effectively not doing the right thing. I remember looking into it and seeing that there was, one, maybe two, doctors or groups that were effectively able to prescribe nicotine. And again, that asterisk of what Steve was saying, that's just my experience in looking to try and find a situation to even inquire about a prescription. So whether I was not looking in the right place, there was a moment when ATHRA, kind of in mid to third quarter last year, started to post the health professionals who would be able to help, and that list of doctors or clinics, I guess, that were able to do that. And I never really looked into it. I don't know why. There was other stuff going on. Late last year was FDA was cracking down, and I guess the world was focusing on the US and that whole situation. And oh, sorry, I was just looking at DOI. That's is that Pippa DOI saying she's had a prescription for the last 3.5 years now. Yeah. So whether it was easy to access, even if you're just looking for the information, it was not a simple. There it is. Like that whole situation. I do recall an email that I wrote to one of our vaping advocates, activists. How do I get help? And I got no response. So it was one of those things. Anyway, coming back to that, recently with the Colin Mendelsohn Facebook live stream that he did last week, I think Steve and I probably had the same thoughts, because the next day we were both slated in for an appointment to discuss the situation of a prescription. I feel like my personal experience was, there were things that I was able to bring to it, because you're trying to keep yourself informed as a vapor and, ahead of the news, so to speak. But I also felt like there was a lot of compassion and a lot of, there was the situation that I was able to share, that discussion and a plan and, even the thought of working out how much nicotine I actually consumed in a day, in a week, in a month, in a quarter, to work out how that prescription, because again, I don't take any prescription anything. I rarely take ibuprofen. So I'm not a unique case, but, drugs and prescriptions are not really something that is in my life. So even the fact of how they work out the prescription, like Steve was saying, that the TGA will effectively cross-check and, cross-reference what you're ordering into the country was new to me. I never thought about it that way. But the ability for anyone in any financial situation, I had kind of gone in expecting that maybe it was going to cost me a bunch of money to have some sessions, plural sessions to, discuss a plan or whatever that situation was. The fact that it was done in one session, there's a Medicare rebate. The cost, if, outside of the Medicare rebate, is not that much. It's no more different than you going to the doctor who doesn't bulk bill, effectively. So for those in Australia who have ummed and ahed about it, or a tangent of that when I put the report into a different Discord group that I'm in to give the information to people to show how easy it can be, I got a couple of responses of, well, I have enough nicotine in my freezer to last me for a while, so I don't need a prescription now. And that to me was like, but you're still, not doing the right thing.
But what if the cops look in your freezer?
Exactly. You're in possession of something that is as a controlled substance. So, even if you think you're going to be okay, even if you're stockpiling, even if you're, not using that much nic, or, that whole situation, it's a really, really easy thing. And like Steve said, many of the groups are trying to, make it accessible. A prescription is a silly thing in the grand scheme of things, of what it costs for protocols to be enacted by, whether it's Border Patrol or Mr. Hunt or all of that situation. A prescription, just do it. It's so easy. And I left that session going, I can't believe how easy it has become. But it made me think, this switch is happening. You've got Greg Hunt standing up there saying, not on my watch, and he's been maintaining that for how many years now. But now we have Did you put that? Yep, Steve has put the link in there. athra.org.au/doctors. There is a list of people there who have effectively there to help and there to now effectively stand up and say, we can help you get a prescription.
And it is important to note that there's these people always exist. There's a certain segment of our community that will say, yeah, whatever, but I don't think we should have one. I don't want to get one because we don't need them. It shouldn't be medicalized. It shouldn't belong to big pharma. And I understand where you're coming from with that. We agree with you. ATHRA agrees with you. The doctors writing these prescriptions, they agree with you. They don't think they should. Even if you are against it on principle, go get one anyway, because your principles don't matter squat when you get fined. You can't pay your fine with your principles. So get the freaking prescription, cover your ass, make sure you and your family and the people around you are safe and legally covered. In the future, as time progresses, we are continuing this fight. We are continuing to advocate. We are continuing to ask and request and fight and demand for change to get this part of the law struck down so you don't need the prescription. But until then, cover your ass.
Yeah.
It just makes sense.
What if in 3 months' time, it turns out that there is, they keep saying 250,000 plus vapors here in Australia. What happens if 5,000 of those people have prescriptions? That can't be ignored, whether the government is going to do whatever they're going to do because we can't stop politicking. But in the same vein, if they don't take these products away from us totally, that's a better outcome.
Well, one of the biggest issues of this country is that when it comes to government stuff, they don't like to take research from overseas. You can have perfectly valid, perfectly good research that proves something, but we've got to reproduce it here ourselves just to make sure it works with us, et cetera, that kind of thing. And this happens with medical marijuana. It's happened with various chemo drugs. It happens all the time. We have to replicate the research. One of the things that this does is it lays the paperwork ground trail so that in the coming year, we can say, okay, we've got all these prescriptions, all these people, and yep, they've come back. They've managed to stay off smoking. They're still vaping, but they've managed to stay off smoking. The following year, yep, we have twice as many prescriptions. And look at these people. They've come back, and our records show that they're not dual using. These people have stopped dual using. But all these figures that we can statistically look at that show, that literally prove in that paper trail that over time, if it's available, we don't relapse. If it's available, we use it, we stop smoking, net benefit for public health. We can lay that paperwork trail with this and use this paperwork as evidence to prove. There's research out there that is done by going into a lab and actually sitting down and doing stuff. And then there's research that is done by looking at the paper trail of what's been going on and what's been collated over years. We haven't been taking advantage of what we have here. If we use this paper trail and all these prescriptions, we can prove. I mean, my own personal paper trail, if I'd gotten off my butt and done this 4 years ago, would prove that in my case, 4 years with no relapse because of availability of nicotine. If we add these up person by person, like you said, what if we have 5 or 10,000 prescriptions next year? 5 or 10,000 people that are using nicotine because it's available and they're using it and not relapsing.
Yep, that's right. And are not smoking, not part of that situation, putting, pressure on the health system,
Mowgli Vapes asked if, where was it? He asked if all the doctors on that list are nicotine friendly. Yeah, that is ATHRA, the Australian Tobacco Harm Reduction Association's list of doctors who will do nicotine prescriptions. Like each one of them is verified. So if you can't find your local doctor, if you try to talk to your regular GP and they're just not up for it, go to that list. It doesn't hurt. My regular doctor is someone else. If I got aches and pains and sore knees, whatever, I'll go to him. But I went to Dr. Collin for this, and he's a wonderful, wonderful man.
Yeah.
And
I think people should also remember it's a discussion, a discussion about your usage and that situation. It's not a guaranteed, hey, that's what you want, I'm just going to write this script out for you. It's not that at
No.
all. It's, you got to do it the right way. Have a discussion about it. You might learn some things about yourself and your vaping habit, just like I did.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. So, do the right thing, and it's
I
available
have
to
to say
everybody.
too, I would never advise you to be dishonest with your doctor. Don't do that.
Hmm.
Be forthright, be forthcoming, and literally be honest and explain how much you use and the various ways that you use it. Because in my case, I will purchase this. This came from overseas and it's ready to vape. But I will also purchase this, which has no nicotine in it, so I have to buy 100 milligram. So in my case, I ended up with two different prescriptions for some for this and some for what I need to add to this to make it work.
Hmm.
And the amounts are based on my personal usage over time. It is a bit of a discussion, like you said, but once you take your time and work it out, um, make sure that you're ordering within that, at least on individual orders. If your prescription says that in 3 months you will use 750 mils of 100 milligram nicotine, that's a lot. But if you go through that in 3 months and you order a liter, that's not going to match up. That's going to be sent back. I said this yesterday in a different stream, but they're not going to scoop out 250 off the top and send you the excess.
Yeah.
They're just going to get rid of the whole thing. You're going to lose it. So make sure that once you got your prescription, that you understand it and what it says, so that when you order, you're ordering within, at least per order, that you're
Yeah.
ordering within what the prescription says.
Yeah, which actually brings up an interesting point, and I certainly don't want to, make things any harder for the vendors who are struggling right now. But even in the situation of the prescription and the volumes of nicotine, whether it be already in e-liquid ready to vape, with nicotine in it, or 100 milligrams in PG and VG, whatever, the volume size of the bottles that you're effectively buying sometimes don't match, like the situation of exactly what's saying,
Yes.
what's matched on the prescription. So, is that the next step so that vendors effectively can meet the criteria of, I know it's, that's a huge logistic pain in the ass, but in the same vein.
And that's where law and medical science, in terms of dosage and stuff, because by law they have to make the prescriptions in a certain format.
Yeah.
X amount per day, or X amount a certain amount of times per day, multiplied by 30 days, multiplied by 3 months is how much you're going to have. And it has to be in that format. That, compared with the logistics of retailing a product in packaging, which is usually like 50, 100, 250 mils, dead simple, right?
Yeah.
Getting those to match can be very, very difficult. If your prescription is for 200, then the 250 ml bottle is kind of off the cards for you.
Mm-hmm.
And getting a company to make bespoke bottles to match your prescription, it's not going to happen. Everyone's going to be a little different.
Yeah.
There is a trick to get around that. As I was saying, I would never tell you to lie to your doctor. But if you're ordering a 250 divided by 3 divided by 30 would give you your daily dose. And if that's what you told your doctor, then your prescription would match a 250 bottle. But I didn't say that.
Massive asterisk there, Steve Legion. Wow. Anyway, that's the heavy part of the conversation. There are avenues for people. Please do it. Do the right thing. Yes, it's a pain in the ass, but effectively then you won't have the products taken away from you, or even worse, destroyed at the border, and you couldn't even get your hands on them. So,
Well, that's the thing. Like I said earlier, we have been not living in a loophole, but we've been living we've been taking advantage of slackness. The border control they don't care. It's not a problem. They know it's not a problem. They don't give a fuck, and they just let it through. It's not really an issue for them. The only time border issues have ever come up has been with Queensland, and that's an internal thing, not a federal thing. We've been living in this with no issues, but it looks like that's going to get stricter. The pressure is there for that to happen. And I mean, I can imagine. I mean, we've all worried about it. Like, is my package? Is it been stopped? Is it? It's 4 days late. Did they throw it away?
Mm.
You know, that panic when you think that you're not going to get your order, especially if you're one of those people that lets yourself run down right to the line. Um, some people do that, you know, and that's the way technically you should do it. Um, what happens if you're on your last bottle and you're down to here, and then you get a message saying your shipment's been destroyed?
Mm.
I mean, not only have you lost your shipment and you're not being re-upped, but you know, is it fair to put that on the vendor? Are you
Yeah.
going to lose the money? Are they going to lose the money? You know,
Yeah.
just don't get into that mess at all. Just um, get that prescription. Um, yeah, I think we've covered off this topic enough.
Yeah. Let's talk about the amazing thing that happened on Sunday, the Aussie Vape Show. Steve, how do you feel about it?
Oh, that thing. Yeah, it was nothing. No, yeah, this Sunday was the premiere first episode of the Aussie Vape Show. It was myself. It was Squidley from Friday Vape Club. It was Dave Kudrev from All Day Vapes. And as a very, very special guest, we had Sam the Vaping Bogan on. And we had a lot of fun. We went just about 2 hours straight, which surprised me. It was really, really comfortable, really, really easy to talk to everyone. Um, it was nice to see a lot of local faces in the chat, a lot of people that I don't normally see interacting. Part of the reason for the show is to allow that. We haven't had much of that. Most of our shows, the vape community shows, are in the wrong time zone for us. If you're working, if you've got kids, if you've got anything going on during the day, um, you're not going to be able to catch these things live. You're watching the replays, and I wanted there to be the opportunity for interaction with local people, something that we don't always get a chance to do unless you're lazy like me and stay at home. So, yeah, that was really, really nice to see all of those. And yeah, the response was really, really nice. We had I think it was roughly 700 views live. And last I looked, it was 2.3K including the replays, which is amazing, absolutely amazing for a brand new show, a new thing. A lot of that, of course, I said this earlier. A lot of that's got to do with Sam. Sam brings the numbers in, but hopefully, we'll keep this rolling every week, every Sunday, 4:30 a.m. if you're in the States. I'm so sorry, but it's not targeted for you guys. And yeah, over the next couple of weeks, I've got a couple of nice people lined up as guests. We're definitely making a point of changing things up. Usually with these shows, it's look to another reviewer, look to another show. We've done on this show. We've done with the Omis. We had them on ours. We were on theirs. We've had Sam on various shows. I mean, that kind of thing is pretty standard. But I wanted to change things up. I want to have the vendors themselves. I want to get the people who in our country are mixing and making and selling e-liquid. I want to get some of the distro people so we can get an understanding of what happens behind the scene. I think there's a complete lack of understanding amongst the general vapor about how many people are involved in the industry here and the different roles that they take and how important they are and just the mechanics of it. Understanding why it may take 2 months longer for something to hit our shores and why it costs a little bit more and all that sort of thing. I really want to get kind of like pick the right minds and get that information out there so people do understand how these things work together.
Mm.
So yeah, we've got some good guests coming up and still working to line up more over time. Yeah, I'm hopeful. I think it's going to be a good show.
Yeah, it's well needed. It's a good thing, a great avenue for those in this industry who have been here a long time, and a great place for them. There's so many that are shy for the camera as well, but like nothing is better than the experience and I guess the true words of those who are doing it day to day and paying their rent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to address going back to just a prescription to Always Lost as The question was, can you get a bit extra just in case the shipping is slow? And I'm assuming that's referring to e-liquid with nicotine in it. I guess technically, if they were going to stop your package and inquire about that, and like Steve said, if it didn't, cross-reference with the amount on your prescription, I'm sure if you have a prescription, then there's probably some leeway for conversation. But the reality is, I guess technically, if it doesn't meet what your prescription says, then that might be a problem.
Technically, if we had a perfect border control system and an absolute perfect police state, every order that came in would be logged to your name, and so they would add up.
Yep.
So if you order 3 different orders over the course of a month from different people, by the end of it, they would be able to say, wait a minute, you're starting to go overboard here. That's not how it's working in reality. In reality, I think all you need to worry about is an individual order. So as long as an individual order is within the tolerance of your prescription, my wife says maybe, then the next one should be good. And again, this is nebulous. We don't know where this is going to go. We don't know how strict they're going to become. Like I said, in a perfect world, in an absolute police state, every single order would be logged. Here's the thing that we won't know. We won't know if our package has been noticed. If your package is flagged, oh, it's got nicotine in it, Adam. Oh, he's got a prescription and he gets this much. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Yep. When you get that package, you won't know that they looked at it. Mm-hmm. You won't know that they compared it to your thing. It'll just get passed. And so they could log these things. We don't know how it's going to work out in the long run.
Yeah, that's plenty of ifs and maybes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ideally, it would still be a little bit loose for us on that sense, because I just don't see Border Control really having the desire to log every single thing. And as my wife said again, maybe.
Let's face it, government bodies don't talk to government bodies. They just do not. There's a communication error there. But you see it on, I don't know anyone personally that's had a package stop, that is, it's hearsay whether they ordered it legally or against, legislation. But in the same vein, I don't know anyone personally that's had a package stop. But then you do see it in some of the forums and whatnot. Random people have had packages, stopped. But same again, you don't know whether they're ordering a liter of nicotine. Yeah. I mean, that to me is a red flag straight away. Yes. But those kind of situations, Yeah.
I also, you're right. We do see occasionally. I don't know anyone who claims personally to have the package stop. I have seen mentions of that here and there on forums.
Yeah.
And I do have that sort of question, like, is it actually been stopped, or is it just 5 days late?
Yeah.
Did you just say it's been stopped and then later? Because I see people all the time getting really confused by their tracking messages. Like strange messages will appear in their tracking. Like, does that mean it's been sent back? No, that just means it landed.
Yeah.
Learning to read those things, it can be an art in itself, translating, and every tracking system is different.
Yeah.
Oh, my wife has mentioned that I had a package opened once. If I remember correctly, that was hardware. Yeah. That was hardware, and it was a biosecurity check.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Had the big biosecurity sticker over it and everything.
Interesting.
But that was hardware. That was, if I remember correctly, that was a couple of years ago. That was Osmotus.
Interesting. Yeah. So it wasn't the remote controls you ordered off Wish.
No. Have you ever ordered off Wish?
No, sir.
Did you ever order off Wish?
No, sir.
No. Just a word of note. Don't order off Wish. Don't order vape products off Wish.
No.
Definitely don't order batteries off Wish. Don't even think about cheap butt plugs off Wish. Just don't do it. It's not worth the hassle.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we've rabbited on enough. Hopefully, we gave you enough information as we possibly can. Again, the disclaimer: we're not lawyers, we're not medical professionals. We were just sharing our experience. Steve, we're coming up to the hour. So
We are.
you've got you're the live king at the moment. You've got lives all over the freaking place.
Oh, it's just because I have no products to review, honestly. Which, I'll be fair. I'm filling time and I'm creating content and keeping people entertained. Part of it is also, just the whole Corona thing. We're all sitting at home bored, so why not chat for a little bit? And as the products start coming back in, I will keep up with these because I've actually come to really enjoy doing them. I look forward to them a lot. So if you're looking for my next week's schedule, it'll be the same as my last week's schedule. I'll give it to you in Australian, and then I'll give it to you in US times.
Yep.
On Wednesday, I've got Coffee with Legion Vapes. On Friday, we've got Ion Vaping. We talk about the news and stuff. Sunday night here, we've got episode 2 of the Aussie Vape Show. Brings us right around to Tuesday, and we're back right here doing the Amigos & Co. Now, if you are in the States, think for a sec. On Tuesday, we've got Coffee with Legion Vapes. On Thursday, we've got Ion Vaping. And somewhere about Saturday morning at 4:30, when you're all asleep, we've got the Aussie Vape Show. That's pretty much it. I have no reviews lined up. The next review I actually have is this little beast, which, 29th or something like that. This will be a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Got a few things lined up to come in. Got a few things lost in the post. There is, I mentioned it last week, there's an Atomizer version 2 somewhere out there. I've got a Jenna coming from Jay Hayes. We're
Really?
waiting on that one for 2 years. It's out there somewhere. That's what he said. He said it's in the mail, and I believed him.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, next week's show, we will be sure to get Vandal on so that he can tell us of his debauchery. There was a few very funny stories that Mr. Vandal himself posted yesterday on Instagram, and I want to know all about it. And Vandal, I don't want to see your titties anymore because I've seen them too many times. No, it was outstanding. But hopefully we'll have Mr. Vandal back on the show next week. We want to thank you all for joining us in the discussion. We hope you're staying strong at home, washing your hands, doing all that. Hopefully we'll see some restrictions eased very soon, but got to stay safe. So
just in time for phase 2.
Just in time for phase 2. That's right. Yeah. Awesome. All right. We shall end it. Should we end it?
We shall end it.
All right.
Then we'll go have lunch.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Big love, everyone. Thanks for joining in, and we'll see you next week. What are you holding up there? Oh, I thought that was the 21700 DNA 75. Yeah, interesting. Awesome. All right.
I would be showing that